Hello students, wish you all a pleasant morning. Hope you are all learning. In our previous classes on CIVICS, we had learned the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers, the position and power of the Prime Minister. In the next part, we shall learn the Council of Ministers has two kinds of responsibilities. Their collective responsibility and the individual responsibility. Under the collective responsibility, according to Article 75 of the Constitution, 75 third part of the Constitution, the Council of Ministers shall be collectively responsible to Lok Sabha. The Council of Ministers are responsible to the Lok Sabha. The decisions taken are equally applicable to all the ministers. All the ministers are equally responsible to the decision taken in the cabinet meetings. One particular minister of defense may make the decision, but the other cabinet ministers like external affairs, home affairs or finance should also take the responsibility equally under the collective responsibilities. All ministers shall jointly share the responsibilities and function as a team. There is a term, it says, the Council of Ministers shall swim or sink together. If they coordinate and work like a team, they will swim together. If they do not if they are not united, they may sink. That means the government may fall. It will be the failure of the government. If a vote of no confidence motion is passed in the House against one minister, leads to the resignation of all. This also shows the teamwork. Hence, the Council of Ministers has the collective responsibility of owning the responsibility of all the departments as one. Next comes the individual responsibility. Each individual minister shall take his own department carefully and look after the functions of his own department. Each minister holds the office during the pleasure of the president. If the president is not pleased or receives an order from the prime minister, such a particular minister may lose power or will be asked to resign. So each one works or holds office during the pleasure of the president. Each minister is also responsible and answerable for his own department. If the department is working well, it is all good. If there is a flaw and being caught by the opposition will lead to a great problem. So, a minister in charge of a department should be answerable to the department of his own. Next comes each minister in the individual responsibility is also responsible for the matters of his own department, such as personal lapse if there is anything wrong, departure from official policy, or the breach of oath of secrecy. If any of these things goes wrong, he shall have to act with wit, otherwise it will lead to a problem. The oath of secrecy says, while coming to the ministry, each minister takes a pledge or an oath that they shall not reveal the policies of the government during their tenure or even after that. So, if the oath of office of secrecy is breached, it will lead to the problem of all ministers. Each minister has to own the responsibility if there is any mistake. If a minister makes a mistake and the opposition comes to know any mistake or shortcoming of any particular minister, he or she has to resign himself. If a wrong minister does not take the responsibility of mistake, does not give the resignation, This ultimately will lead to the failure of all the ministers, and under the vote of no confidence motion, whole ministry will lose power. There were the two kinds of responsibilities of the Council of Ministers. Next, we will learn about the differences between the Council of Ministers and the Cabinet. Here I have written for the Council of Ministers, and next is the Cabinet. The Council of Ministers is a body comprising all the three group of ministers. The Council of Ministers consists of all the categories of ministers. They are Cabinet Ministers, Ministers of State, and also the Deputy Ministers. But the Cabinet Minister or the Cabinet is a smaller group, a part of the Council of Ministers of all the senior ministers. First difference is that Council of Ministers comprises all the three groups of ministers, but Cabinet is only one of the Council of Ministers. Next is the Prime Minister may or may not consult with all the ministers of the Council, but the Prime Minister always consults with the Cabinet Ministers. So, the two differences we have learned. In the next, the Council of Ministers rarely meets in the day-to-day working of the government. They are not always called, or they do not meet to plan about the policies of the government. While the Cabinet always meets, it frequently meets to determine the policies of the government. The Council of Ministers rarely meets, while the Cabinet Ministers always meet or frequently meet to talk about the government policies. According to the Constitution, the Council of Ministers advise the President, but in reality, they all do not advise, only the Cabinet advises the President. And in the Cabinet part of it, in the governance of the country, the Cabinet advises the President, not by themselves, through the Prime Minister. There are a few kind of differences between the Cabinet Ministers and the Council of Ministers. Council of Ministers is a large body, while the Cabinet Minister is a small body, small group of ministers, but important and faithful ones for the Prime Minister. With this, we have come to the end of the lesson of Prime Minister and the Council. Now we shall see the exercise of this lesson. In the exercise, in the first question we have, state one point of difference between the Cabinet and the Council of Ministers with reference to their responsibilities to the government. This is the answer. The third point of the differences that I have given, point number 3, is the answer to this question, that the Council of Ministers rarely meets in the day-to-day working of the government, while the Cabinet meets frequently as the Cabinet determines the policies of the government. Question number 2, what are the main features of the Cabinet? The main features of the Cabinet is that the President is the nominal head, the Prime Minister as the real head, and the Council of Ministers collective responsibility and individual responsibilities are some of the features of the Cabinet form of government. Question number 3 has mention the categories of ministers in the Council of Ministers. Yes, we have learned. What are they? They are the Cabinet Ministers. In number 2, the Ministers of State. And third one is Deputy Ministers. They are the 3 categories of the ministers in the Council. Question 4. What does a minister affirm under the oath of office? To carry out the functions according to the Constitution. Carry out the functions of the government according to the Constitution and be faithful to the Constitution and countrymen according to the Constitution, and also be faithful. Okay. There, that is for fourth number answer. Fifth, explain the term collective responsibility. Collective responsibility says that all the ministers of the council, basically the cabinet, are equally to share the governance of the country. Okay, that was 5. Number 6 we have come. Mention 3 important features of the cabinet system of government. Again, features. First, we have learned that the president is the nominal head, the prime minister is the real head, the collective responsibility, the individual responsibility, and also collective responsibility, individual responsibility, prime minister as the real head, and the ministers are answerable to the parliament. Ministers are answerable to the members of parliament, are some of the features of the cabinet form of government, or the features of the cabinet. The next of the questions I shall explain you in the next class. For now, this much. Hope you are staying safe, obeying your parents. Bye-bye for now.